Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our event tonight here at Widcombe Baptist Church. Mental health, is God any help when darkness falls? My name's Tom. It's my joy to host tonight, and I've got Paul and Lexi here with us. Paul and Lexi, you're going to introduce yourself a lot more in a minute, but first of all, just briefly, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, a little bit about what you do? Paul, maybe if you start us off.
My name is Paul. I'm one of the ministers or pastors here at the church at Widcombe. I've been here for almost 7 years. My wife Edra is with me tonight. We have 4 grown-up children, all of whom are married and in different parts of the country, and 8 delightful grandchildren who we're longing to spend more time with.
Yeah, my name's Lexi, and I come to this church along with my husband, who is at home kindly putting our 2 boys to bed, who are 8 and 5. So yes, that's me.
And you're from Leicester, so
I am from
very
Leicester,
happy
so we're
today after the cup
celebrating.
final.
Yes, exactly.
There you go.
Great. So tonight we're tackling this big question about mental health. And I know that's a hugely important question. Maybe for some of us here tonight, it's a very sensitive question, very pertinent to our lives. And it's our prayer that tonight, whether this is your very first time coming to anything to do with church, or whether you've been many, many times, this would be very helpful to you. Let me just give you a brief outline of what we're going to do tonight. First of all, we're going to hear from Paul and Lexi about some of their personal experiences with mental health. And then we'll pause for a few minutes, we'll see a video, and then we'll come back and think about that question: is God any help when these things are pressing in on us? Then we'll have some time for questions. So you'll see up on the screen, or if you're at home, you'll see there the number to text in, or you can use the YouTube chat function, and we'll answer your questions later on in the evening. So if you want to ask anything tonight, just send that in to us. And then at the end, Paul will round us out with a short epilogue. So the last thing I need to say to you is at the end of the evening, there's going to be some email addresses on the screen. If you'd like to get in contact, if you want to talk about this some more, if you're looking for some support in these areas, then just give those email addresses a message in the week, and we'll get back to you about that. So do take that opportunity if that's you. With the subject of mental health, Lexi, first of all, can I just ask you simply, what do we mean by mental health?
Sure. Well, mental health includes our psychological and well-being, and also our emotional and social and spiritual well-being. But when we talk about mental health in the media, we're often talking about actually not the health in those areas, but actually the fact that we might be struggling in some of those areas.
Okay. Tonight we're sitting in a church, we're at a church event, and I know that raises questions for some people. Should the church really, is this not the church's remit at all? Should the church stay away from mental health? What do you think, Paul?
Well, we as human beings, we've got a mind, we've got a body, we've got a soul. We're a mixture, and the church can overstep the bounds. You know, if a church tells you don't go and see a doctor, or don't go for counselling, don't look for support, medical support sometimes, drug therapy, then the church has overstepped its bounds. During my time as a Christian minister, there have been a number of times when I've actually been contacted by local GPs and have said, can you help with this person? We've helped them so far, but we feel they need something that only the church can offer. And so in that sense, it's a cooperation. It's something that hopefully, without being arrogant and saying, we have the answer, is saying we do have some significant input when it comes to dealing with areas like depression or anxiety. The Bible certainly deals with those things. So without wanting to monopolize the field, working with those who are experts in this area, I think Christianity has a lot to offer. Yeah.
Great. Now, Lexi, I know that your job, both your jobs in fact, involve quite a lot to do with mental health. Can you just share a little bit more about your input in that?
Sure. So, I've got 2 jobs. So part of my week, I work as a cognitive behaviour therapist, CBT therapist in the NHS. That means I mostly see people with depression and anxiety disorders. The people I see most of at the moment are people with post-traumatic stress disorder. In fact, I think some of my CBT colleagues might be watching tonight, so hi guys. And, yeah, I think you're amazing at what you do. Thanks for being great colleagues. But anyway, yes, so that's one job. The other job that I've just started more recently in October is working here as a pastoral worker. So I guess that means I get to bring two areas that I'm very passionate about together. One is people in the honest reality of life, and the other one is a loving and caring God. And how do those meet, and what difference does it make?
And how did you get into this? How did you get into working in mental health?
Well, I was always interested in psychology. When my friends were watching Top of the Pops while we were teenagers, I would be listening to All in the Mind on Radio 4. But when I was 18, one of my friends really struggled with his mental health so much that he needed to be sectioned for his safety. And I remember going to visit him in hospital, and that was really, significant. And I guess you mentioned, actually, just as a side note, that there'll be emails for support afterwards, and sometimes it's not necessarily that you're the one struggling with mental health. Sometimes you're trying to support other people, and that can be tricky too. So the email addresses will be there. I came here then to study psychology, and had thought that I would go into some sort of kind of psychological research into my placement year, but actually that experience with my friend sparked something, and so I decided to go to sunny Southampton and do a year working in some specialist mental health services down there.
And I know that it's not just your work, that you've experienced some mental health issues yourself personally. Can you share a little bit about that for us?
So after university, I had an episode of depression. I didn't necessarily use those words at the time. All I just knew was that I was crying a lot, or I was angry a lot. And get to the door of work, just about to go in and think, I can't cope. I have to fight the tears. Or on the way to church, having to bawling my eyes out, lots of big breaths. Even about to ring my parents, something that should be so natural, and yet at that time was really required a lot to push myself to do it. But it did go after a few months, and actually that was really mild compared with what a lot of people experience. I do realise that.
And Paul, I know that you've worked as a pastor for over 30 years, and part of that role involves dealing with issues of mental health. Can you help us understand how a pastor's role involves that?
Yeah, I mean, the word pastor might be a word that you're not familiar with. It's basically a shepherd. In the first century, Jesus speaks of himself as the good shepherd, and he speaks of those who are involved in ministry within the church as the shepherds or the pastors of the flock. In the first century, the health of the sheep depended on the care of the shepherd. And so in a sense, my job has been for almost 40 years now, pastoring people, helping people through the traumas of life. And that's part of the job, a very significant part of the job. You get to see people in the big things in life, births and marriages and deaths, helping with the ups and downs, helping with grief, helping with anxiety, helping in all sorts of areas. For most of my time as a pastor, I ran something that I rather grandly called a surgery. It would either be in the evening or it would be in the morning in the week, and it would be 2 or 3 hours when I was just available, and people would turn up. They didn't need to make an appointment. Sometimes they had to wait. Some mornings would be quiet. Other times it would be a whole stream of people. And very often it would be with issues that were just overwhelming, things that they didn't know how to get through. And were looking for prayer, looking for a shoulder to cry on. Very often I would say, look, what I think you need to do is go and see your doctor. Get some help, and then we can talk. But I came to the realization that actually, in a normal congregation of people, from time to time, many of them, if not a majority of them, will go through times of darkness, times of despair. Sometimes it comes for a while, sometimes it can last for weeks on end. And they're looking for support, they're looking for help. Just to bring it right up to date, some people have sailed through lockdown, and for others it has been the most traumatic experience in their lives. I've spoken to people who've struggled with loneliness. As a Christian, I'm not supposed to feel like that, am I? One of my friends talks about the miracle of the church car park, by which she means, you arrive in church on a Sunday in the car park. If you're lucky enough, you find a place, but you're in absolute despair. The week has gone dreadfully, things are falling apart. And then you walk from your car to the church, and somehow you have to now pretend everything's okay, so you put on a mask. We all know about masks, don't we? Well, this is a figurative mask. You pretend. How are you doing? I'm doing okay. From the car to the church, there's the miracle. Suddenly the problem's gone away. Well, of course it hasn't. It hasn't. And I say as well, it's not just it's not just any age. I mean, it's young people, students particularly have struggled, I think, in the last year. Middle-aged people who are very successful in life, older people, a whole range of things. And so over the last year particularly, once we were able to walk, I've walked with folk, I've met people in the garden, we've done some Zoom meetings, which are always, imperfect, but just contacting constantly people with issues that are would fall under this category.
And as we've spoken, you've mentioned that during times in your ministry you face periods of darkness or depression. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it may sound strange, but I think from the age of 14, I was pretty convinced that I wanted to be a pastor. That sounds strange, but that was something that I'd seen it happening. I hadn't been a Christian very long, but I just wanted to help people. I wanted to be able to help people to know who Jesus was. I wanted to teach the Bible, which I loved, and I wanted to just be there to help people. And I can remember from that moment onwards thinking, that's my life direction. That's where I want to go. I'm sure that's what God wants. And then it would be a couple of years after that I began to experience pretty severe bouts of darkness, bouts of depression, times when it just seemed overwhelming. And I'm not sure I cried, but I think I just found it difficult to get up in the morning, and I was struggling with all sorts of things. It would be particularly bad in the winter, when it gets dark at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, and you see the sun going down and the darkness rising, and I just would be overwhelmed by that. And I think the worst bit was thinking, this is me, this is my life, this is how I'm going to be for the whole of my life, so I'll never be able to do or to be what I wanted to be. I'll never be a pastor, not ever, because you can't be a pastor when you're like this. Those bouts are still there. It's a little bit like toothache, if I can put it this way. Toothache, if you've got a bad tooth, and a lot of the time you're just aware that you've got a little ache, sometimes it can be pretty severe. And it's up and down, but I've learned coping mechanisms, and I think the most significant thing of all, the thing that's been most amazing to me, was that actually the darkness seems to have prepared me and qualified me and equipped me to help people who are always also in the dark. I think it was T.S. Eliot who said it's the wounded physician who can be of some help, who can heal. And that's what I discovered through my own experience of darkness, and knowing that, depression's always there, kind of in the background. You've got to keep your foot on it. It helps you to have an insight and, if you like, a compassion for people who go through similar things. So, I think that would be my experience.
No, thank you both for sharing those things. In a few minutes we're going to come back and develop those ideas some more. But first we're going to watch a music video that talks of some of the experiences of people who face issues of mental health. So I think that'll play for us now.
place, yeah, I'm trapped in. Underwater, can't breathe, suffocating. Can't think, yeah, my thoughts be wondering. Nowhere to go, guess I'll stand hiding. Yeah, yo, feeling so alone. The world is kinda scary, so I climb back in my zone. Feeling so lost, trying to find my way home. Always been an outsider, cast away the unknown. I don't know what to do, should I tell my friends? But then again, my friendships may end, so I keep it to myself, won't let you in. Lord, tell me how much longer before it ends. It's like I'm living life through a dark tunnel. I can see light, but I can only see it. Even though some days I feel like I reached it, only to be knocked back down the tunnel, feeling defeated. I start back up, just to stop again. Failure becomes my reliable new friend. I need to be free to tell. I pray the stigma gone, I pray the fear would fail. I pray that God will free my mind from this jail cell. At least give me some people that I can tell, that I can trust. Won't write me off as wasted dust. I just wish my mind would hush.
I need a bridge to get from where I am to where I wanna be. I wanna live free from all this misery. Can you help me? Help me to be free.
Yeah.
There is hope, you're not alone. On your own, by yourself. There is hope.
There's hope.
We are here for you.
Hold on.
He is too. There is hope, you're not alone. On your own, by yourself. There is hope. We are here for you. He is too.
Yeah, there's help and there's hope, and there's a way to see life clearer, no scope. And there are 3 things that you really need to know, so let me get to them right before I let you go. You're not a mistake, and your struggles don't define you. Wrote this song only to remind you you're valued, priceless. Yeah, you're to die for, with a plan and purpose. No, you're not worthless, I know this for certain. No, you're not a burden. We all need to feel pain when someone is hurting. You gotta know you're worth it. There's hope for certain.
There is hope, you're not alone.
You're not alone.
On your own, by yourself. There is hope, we are here for you. And he is too. There is hope, you're not alone.
You're not alone.
On your own, by yourself.
Yeah.
There is hope, we are here for you. He is too. Bridge to get from where I am to where I wanna be. I wanna live free from all this misery. Can you help me?
I need your help.
Help me to be free. There is hope, you're not alone. On your own, by yourself. There is hope. We are here for you.
Hold on.
He is too. There is hope, you're not alone. On your own, by yourself. There is hope, we are here for you. He is too.
Rap music?
It is, Paul, yes.
Right, wow. And that's good, isn't it, that I do that? Amazing.
It's an education for you tonight.
Education, there you go.
So we spent a bit of time getting to know you both and some of your experiences, but now we want to really think about that question, is God any help in these times where darkness falls, where we face struggles with mental health? I think it's fair to say that there's been a critique in history that people have perhaps not spent as much time thinking about issues of mental health as they should have done. And perhaps that accusation has also been levelled at the church. So can I ask you both, does Christianity take mental health seriously? Paul, do you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, I mean, the Christian faith is based on the teaching of Jesus, and in particular, it's based on the teachings of the Bible. We believe that the Bible is God's word to us, God speaking to us. And if you read the Bible, it is a book which is utterly, totally honest. It doesn't sugarcoat the pill. It shows us that we're living in a world which is broken, and we're broken individuals, and the trauma of a broken world is taken seriously. So if you were to just take your Bible and open it up in the middle, two of the books right in the middle, and they're kind of back to back, is a book called Job and a book called Psalms. The book of Job is a story about a man who experiences the most traumatic circumstances of life. He experiences bereavement, he experiences financial collapse, he experiences physical disability. And the result is the most traumatic psychological outpouring you can imagine. And he writes about his experiences. He writes about how he copes with it. He writes about being in the darkness, feeling alone, feeling betrayed, feeling there's no hope, and feeling there's nowhere to turn. And as he writes these things, he moves from an experience of absolute despair with the occasional kind of shafts of light as he looks beyond the darkness and he sees something of God there. And so here's this book which really does take that head on. And then right next to the book of Job is the book of Psalms. And Psalms really is a series of poems. They're songs, but they're written in poetic form. And they're describing the whole range of human experiences and human feelings and human emotions. There's not a single emotion, there's not a single experience, there's not a single trauma that we ever go through in life which is not reflected somewhere there in the book of Psalms. So it deals with loneliness, it deals with guilt, the overwhelming, crushing sense when we've failed and we know we've failed, and our conscience is overactive and we know we've done wrong. It deals with things like fear and anxiety and doubt and despair and all of those things. And very often those little psalms, those little poems begin in the darkness and they slowly work out into the light. And you come through the tunnel, as it were, and you find some light there. So I mean, so often when I've sat with folk and we've been trying to work through these things, you turn them to the book of Psalms and you read it to them and they say, it's as if this person knows me. It's as if they're in my head. They know where I've been. And of course, the God of the Bible is a God who is full of compassion and speaks to us. So does the Bible take it seriously? Yes, it does, very much so.
Yeah, I think I would just add that the Bible says that God created all of us, so that includes our bodies, our emotions, our brains, and since sin came into the world, what we sometimes call the fall, they don't always work in harmony with each other. And we as people don't always work in harmony together, and we don't work in harmony with God either. And God knows that, but he's not okay with that being the status quo. He's stepped in, he's sent Jesus to rescue us. And I guess the other thing to say is that when Jesus was here, he knew what it was like to experience, to weep, to be really to the point of real stress, I guess, as he looked towards the cross. And to be mistreated, to feel weak. So we have a God who cares, but we also have a God who knows, who's been here.
I think it's fair to say that when those kind of struggles press in on us, we often find ourselves asking questions inside of our hearts. Is there any meaning to all of this? Where can I find safety? Who am I really? How can I cope with the demands of my life? And I think, Paul, you mentioned earlier that you thought at one point, I couldn't even do my job. Yeah. Does faith in Jesus give us any answers to the kind of questions that rage in our hearts at these times?
Yeah, I guess that the question of identity, who am I, what am I here for, is right on the agenda of everybody at the moment. And politicians speak about it, and philosophers muse over it, and it's a huge issue. Who am I? And it seems to me that it kind of boils down to three fundamental questions. Where am I from? Why am I here? Where am I going? And over the last 150 years, atheism, humanistic atheism, which has said that human beings are just a kind of an accident, has sought to answer those questions. So where am I from? I am an accident. There's nothing more than that. I'm the result of time and chance and matter. Why am I here? Well, Richard Dawkins says that's a meaningless question. Why would you ask that question? To perpetuate your DNA, maybe that's it, but nothing more than that. Why am I here? Stupid question. Where am I going? Well, it's obvious, oblivion. That's it. When you're dead and you're gone. I think Christianity comes back at that and says we have different answers. Answers that have been tested by time. Answers that are true answers, not only because the Bible says so, not only because God says so, but because they fit in with our experience more than anything else. So where am I from? God made me. God created me. God formed me. I'm not the result of chance. Everything about me is exactly what God wanted me to be. So I might look in the mirror and wish that I had a different colour set of eyes. I might wish that I had hair. I might wish all sorts of things. But God made me the way he made me. And that's okay, because God doesn't make any mistakes. God doesn't create rubbish. God made me. I have significance. Why am I here? Well, I was created to know God. The Bible actually says that God has put eternity in our hearts. That's a longing for something beyond ourselves. And we can try and fill that eternal gap, that infinite gap, with a whole range of things, and they'll never fill it. Only God can fill that infinite gap. So much of the loneliness and much of the despair comes in life because we're trying to fill the gap in our lives with something other than God. We're chasing after the latest thing, that holiday, that career move, that pleasure. If I get that, then I'll be satisfied. And the Bible says, no, it's only God. And where am I going? Well, death is not the end. At the heart of the Christian faith is resurrection. Jesus rose from the dead. Death is an interruption in life. It's a horrible thing, but it's not the end. There is hope beyond the grave because Jesus rose from the dead. So where is my meaning? Where is my purpose? Who am I? What am I here for? Do I have identity? Do I have worth? The Bible answers that question, or those sets of questions, overwhelmingly. And it says, look at these things, examine these things for yourself, and you will find the answer tunes in with your own experience. Very often when I'm talking to people and they kind of come back with that sort of atheistic or humanistic answer, I say, well, let me just ask you this. Think about it. Just think inside. Does that satisfy you? Do you feel inside that that's the way it is? And of course, when people step back, they say, well, of course it can't be like that. There's got to be purpose. There's got to be direction. There's got to be meaning. There is right and there is wrong. And I know that. Something instinctively tells me that. So I would say that when we deal with those kind of questions of identity that have huge issues for us in mental health, the Bible gives a definitive and meaningful answer.
Yeah, I would agree. We one of the things that I see a lot of people say is believing that they're worthless. But the Bible, like that song said actually, it talks about how we're priceless, we're to die for. Jesus came and died for us, so we know for certain that we are not worthless at all. We are worth so much and treasured and loved. And I guess a different example is shame. Shame's a horrible emotion. The Bible talks loads about shame, and talks also about how Jesus moves us from the opposite of shame to the opposite of shame, which honour and glory. And if anyone wants to talk about that more, I love talking about that topic, so come and see me sometime.
So we started to talk about the fact that Christianity is centered on Jesus Christ and what he did in his life and what he said and what he experienced in his death and resurrection. How does faith in Jesus today help us in those moments where we are facing issues of mental health, maybe anxiety, depression, things like that?
Can I go first?
Okay. So I guess it's not knowing Jesus isn't a magic bullet. It doesn't mean that it takes away the mental health struggles, but there are moments of relief, peace, rest, when we begin to experience what it's like to live as God, as our rock, as the stronghold of our life, as our ever-present help in times of trouble, then that changes. Though the situations often don't change, we have his strength and his hope in the midst of it.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk how does Jesus help, this person Jesus, I guess we have to start by saying who we're talking about. And he's not a guru. He's not a kind of a pre-Freudian psychiatrist or anything of that sort. Jesus is unique. Jesus is absolutely unique. There has never been anyone like Jesus, because Christians affirm that in Jesus Christ, God has entered into history. That looking at a world which is full of pain, a world which is full of trauma, a world which is desperately broken, God could, quite rightfully, have walked away, could have washed his hands. Instead, he rolls up his sleeves and he comes into this world. He comes with the deliberate intention of turning it round. He comes with the deliberate purpose of rescuing us, as Lexi said. And the person who does it is this man Jesus, who is both God and man. That's a mystery. It's something that it's difficult for us to get our minds around, and yet every Christmas we celebrate the Word, God, becoming flesh and dwelling amongst us. And it's interesting, when John, the disciple of Jesus, wants to describe it, he doesn't say the Word became human. That would be true, but he says the Word became flesh. He became flesh and blood. He became exactly like us. And so through his life, Jesus experienced the kind of traumas that we experience. One of the greatest traumas of all is grief, when you lose a loved one. There's evidence that he lost his earthly father, Joseph, as a young man. He lost a friend, and he's there at a funeral, and the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. He weeps deeply over the death of a loved one. He experiences anxiety. He experiences pressure. He knows. He's not God at a distance. He's God coming close. He dies on a cross in order to deal with shame, which you could describe as emotion, but more than that, with objective guilt. You know, when people suffer with mental illness, they often suffer with phantom guilt. You know, they feel guilty when they haven't done anything. But our consciences tell us that sometimes we have done things that are wrong. And Jesus dies in order that God can blot out that guilt. And then he rises again so that he actually gives hope beyond the grave. He gives life in the midst of death. He gives light at the end of the tunnel. He gives what no one else can possibly give. Here is God's unique answer in Jesus Christ. So a personal relationship, a personal knowledge of Jesus Christ is the most amazing thing. And what I often say to people when they're kind of just testing Christianity out, wanting to find out more, what I say to people is, well, just begin with Jesus. That's the best place to be. It's where you start, it's where you finish. So read a gospel. There are 4 gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Just read one and meet Jesus and discover what a fully human being he is, what a real man looks like, what it means to be truly human, and at the same time much, much more than just human. And I found that a huge help personally in the times that I've been in darkness, and talking to others as they go through those kind of issues.
So as we've seen, Christianity is honest about the reality of struggles in this life. And I think it's fair to say that for some people those struggles will continue through their whole life, that maybe issues of mental health will never really cease. Does God offer any hope for people facing lifelong struggle like that?
Well, I guess one of the things, again, in that song was that idea that this isn't a struggle that you have to do alone. It's still a struggle, but God is with you. And also we, as the people of God, want to support people who are going through this, and to be with you too, and to tell you more about this God who cares and understands, and who has strength when you have none.
Yeah, I mean, picking up that thing of community. The video, you're not alone. We are to bear one another's burdens. More often than not, I've had occasions where a local GP has been in touch with me and they've said, look, we've got someone who's going through trauma at the moment. And I remember a GP when I was in Chippenham who would ring and say, well, I'm not a Christian, but people come to your church and they find something that they don't find anywhere else. In community, they find a place where they're loved and they're accepted. And in that situation, it's priceless. So can we send people to you? And so we had folk quite regularly coming to us who were referred, because here is a community of people who are basically struggling themselves and know that they're not perfect and know that they're broken, but want to help one another, which is what a church is. The idea of the church is perfect people who've got everything sorted, all the issues in life, they've all got them well in hand. No, it's a group of people who are struggling through difficulties. And then beyond that, this word hope, again, which came up over and over again in that video, there is hope. I think of Max. Max was one of the guys who was referred to us, and he started coming to our church. And as a family, we kind of adopted Max. You only like to look at his face, and his face, he looked miserable. Poor old Max. He was bipolar, and there were days when he just couldn't get out of bed, and he tried to work and he couldn't keep a job down, and it was just what happened in his life. One of the things that he helped him was taking photographs, so he went into the countryside, he took photographs, and as a family we kind of adopted him. And he used to come into our home and he'd show us the photographs. And my kids were brilliant, because Max was a bit of a square peg and a little bit off, as it were, but they were really kind to him, and they kind of adopted him and loved him. And he flourished there. And I can remember Max saying to me, I'm very conscious that this is my life. I'm never going to get better. And he had some medication that helped him through the darkest days, but I'm never going to get better. But one day, he said, I'm going to have a new experience. One day I'm going to go out of the darkness into the light, and I'm going to be in the light forever with Jesus. I preached at Max's funeral, and I told the story, and I said, look, Max is now with Jesus, and he's out of the darkness. He's never going to be in the dark again. And one day when Christ raises him from the dead, because that's the Christian hope, it's not just life after death, or it's actually a new body, a resurrection, Max will have complete, absolute physical health and absolute mental health. He'll never again be in the darkness. And that's the Christian hope. So for some people, it's an ongoing thing, and it's kept at bay, but this is me, this is my life. For some people, they struggle with MS or muscular dystrophy, and that's a lifelong sentence, and for others, mental health can be a lifelong sentence. But Christianity offers hope, and it's not pie in the sky when you die, it's not a crutch to lean on, it's not wishful thinking. Is it a crutch? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean it's not true. That doesn't mean it's not founded on fact and reality.
Thanks, Paul. At this stage, we're going to take some questions from the phone. There have been a few coming in, but if you've got more you'd like to ask, now's your chance to get them in. So the first one here says, when my mental health is bad, my faith almost disappears. I can't pray or concentrate to read the Bible. Is there anything you can suggest to help me through those sorts of times?
Shall I respond? Yeah. We kind of think that when we go through difficult times, we've got to cling to God with our fingertips. And if we don't cling to God, we're going to be in trouble. I like to say in those times, God is holding on to you. That's the key thing. He'll never let you go. It's not your grip of him, it's grip of you. I've often told the story about taking my daughter for a walk up on the Malvern Hills when she was 3, I guess, something like that. And when we were walking on the flat bit, she'd say, Daddy, I don't want you to hold my hand. I don't want you to hold my hand. I want to hold your hand. by which she meant she didn't want me to take her little hand in hers. And, her was little hand, my hand, and hold her tightly. I would hold out my finger and she would hold my finger and we'd walk along because she felt like a big girl. But when we were on the difficult bits, I said, darling, I'm going to hold you now. And I'd take her little hand in mine and I'd grip it so that if she stumbled or fell, I'd got her. And in those times, God's got you. So you don't have to earn anything. You don't have to do brownie points. It's not, well, if I didn't pray today, God won't listen to me. One of the things I think maybe at those kind of times is to ask other people to pray for you. One of those times is maybe to read prayers. Maybe one of those times is to listen to music. Listen to songs, Christian songs that, build up your faith. And maybe even listen to the Bible on what's his name? Who's the bloke?
David Suchet.
Poirot. David Suchet. He's got the whole Bible. It's fantastic. I love it. I love the book of Revelation, because when he gets to the book of Revelation, it's like Poirot saying in the library, now I'm going to tell you who's done it and what the ending is. And you get to the book of Revelation, he gives the whole story to an end. But that's by the by. Just don't. You don't have to. It's not. God's going to tell you off because you didn't pray today. It's just relax in God. Just as you sit in the chair, find yourself seated in God and comfortable and safe.
I've got one here that's perhaps more of a testimony, which we might want to just respond to with a few words. I have suffered from depression for as long as I know. I had to give up teaching over 20 years ago due to depression being exacerbated by bullying. I've had serious troughs where I wanted to end my life, and it seemed like it was a very long and dark tunnel. I was told by a Christian that ending my life would be selfish, but I did find that friends deserted me. Yet over the past few years of my life, God has drawn near, and my family have been a support, and the knowledge that God is a fortress and a strong tower has been an encouragement.
He could have written one of the Psalms, couldn't he? That's what the Psalms are like. That's exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
We've got another one here. I've been around Christianity for a while. I think that this might be of some help for me, but I'm anxious about getting caught up in something that I don't really understand. I'm not sure I could cope with the uncertainty of trusting someone I don't really know. Can you help?
Good point. We don't have to trust someone who we don't really know. We can get to know Jesus through reading the Gospels. We would love to talk to you and answer your questions, and we don't mind how long that takes. So we will keep going. So yes, you don't have to trust someone you don't know. The Bible tells us so much about who God is and what he's like.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I'd want to say very strongly is that we should not and should never take advantage of occasions when people are in darkness to kind of push them to something they're uncomfortable with. Christianity is about faith, and in the end, faith is knowing the truth. And you can't really have faith until you know the truth, and then you believe the truth. In other words, you know what it is, and then you come to the point where, yeah, I can see that. The kind of things we've been saying tonight, who is Jesus and who is God, and you believe it. And then the point comes where you trust a person. And it is trust in the end. To become a Christian is a trust. It's not just knowing a series of facts. But the point is, no one can make you do that. And I would run a mile from the idea of, taking advantage of someone because they're in a period of darkness and kind of somehow bringing them to a point where you manipulate them. That's what the cults do. Real Christianity doesn't do that. You give people time to work through and to understand.
I've got one here that says, I've found that God takes human sadness and trouble very seriously. There's no attempt to cheer people up, but a promise that God walks with them even though his footprints are often invisible.
Okay. Is that a question or a statement? It's a kind of a statement, isn't it, really? Yeah. There's a sort of there's a weird view of Christianity that it's kind of happy-clappy all the time, and that if you're not bright and smiling, then there's something wrong with you. And but the point is, God takes all sorts of temperaments, and there are people who are constitutionally happy. There used to be that. You remember the the laughing policeman, and the older ones were, you just laugh. Anyway, there was this whole, look at it on what do they call that thing, Google? Is that right? Or something like that, and look it up, and just joyful all the time, constitutionally happy. I'm constitutionally miserable. That's my wife's greatest problem in life. It's just the way I am. I mean, you look at, I don't only see the beaker half empty. It's got a hole in it. It's about to be completely empty. That's just the way I am. And the point is, God deals with us as we are. The wonderful thing about the church is that people are different. We're all together and we're all different, and we cheer one another on. And it's great having people who are happy, and it's great having people who are less than happy. And my wife is wonderfully happy. I don't know how I'd cope without her. I don't know how she copes with me, but there you go. That's another thing.
Okay. That's all we've had in for now. Just to say that if you do want to talk some more about this, do get in touch at the end. But Paul's now going to bring us some thoughts that wrap up some of the themes that we've been talking about today. So over to you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. And basically, I'm not sure I want to say much more than what's been said already. I think what we've talked about already, it's kind of almost just taking a little bit of that. But I'd just like to read one verse in the Bible. This is Jesus speaking, and it's Jesus speaking at a time when people from all over the area where he's been doing miracles have come to him, and they come for all sorts of reasons. Some of them are excited, some of them are inquisitive, some are a bit skeptical, and they come from all over, and they want to find out who this Jesus is. And Jesus gives them an invitation. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I don't know whether you remember who your favourite teacher was at school. My favourite teacher was Mr. Hughes. He was a Welshman, and he taught me English. And he taught me to love Shakespeare and John Donne and T.S. Eliot. He was a great teacher. But I guess, he didn't say it at the time, but I guess that his whole life he'd struggled with darkness. Our boys, girls for that matter, used to take off their teachers, and so we'd say, in Mr. Hughes' wonderful Welsh accent, this was his favourite saying, boys, he said, you need to get ready for life. Life is one long period of despair, punctuated by moments of lighter depression, but ending in the darkness of the grave. As you can imagine, English lessons were a laugh a minute. I don't share his philosophy, but I guess to a certain extent I share his temperament. The human condition is difficult. Another one of Mr. Hughes's sayings was, we're guilty, we're lonely, and we're going to die. And you kind of think, well, yeah, that is the world. We live in a broken world, clutching fear and gnawing anxiety and guilt and shame, times when we can't sleep, times when we don't feel like eating. Someone said to me once, I feel as if I'm empty inside, and yet inside I'm screaming. Someone else said to me, I feel as if my brain is in a fog. Or someone else, I'm fatigued, I'm so tired, but I can't sleep. Well, into that situation comes these words of Jesus. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And it seems to me that in those words, Jesus is giving us two things. And they're things that we've kind of talked about already this evening. He gives us honesty, and he gives us hope. He gives us honesty, and he gives us hope. He looks out at these crowds of people. We don't know how many there were, hundreds, thousands maybe. He sees a sea of faces. Some are excited and some are puzzled and some are skeptical. But he sees beneath the mask. He sees into the heart. And he sees people who are weary and burdened. They're crushed with the burdens of life. Maybe they're crushed with a sense of guilt and shame. Shame is the emotion. Guilt is the sort of objective sense that I know I've done things that I shouldn't have done, and I can't get them out of my mind. And some of them are crushed by that. Some of them are crushed by fear and anxiety. If only I could control things. If only I could be in control of my life, but it's out of control. Fear, anxiety. For others, it's loneliness. or emptiness or meaninglessness. For others, it's just circumstances. And Jesus sees that, and he speaks into that situation. As I think we probably learnt in the last decade or so, we have to take these issues seriously. Footballers have spoken about them. Have you seen those videos of footballers speaking about their own struggles with depression? I think one of our main banks had a video of it, an advert on the telly. We take these things seriously. Some of you may remember the comedian Spike Milligan. Who was one of the goons, for you younger people who haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. But he was a very, very funny man. But he had periods of depression. And he said people would come to him and they'd say, come on, just pull yourself together. You know, you're okay. And that's about the worst thing you can say to somebody when they're going through these kind of things. He said, telling somebody to pull themselves together, it's like coming to someone who's got 2 broken legs and saying to them, now run a marathon. I can no more run to the edge of the road than run a marathon. I can't do it. And to say to someone, yeah, just pull yourself together, you'll be okay. No, it's not like that. And as we said earlier, the Bible takes it seriously, like book of Psalms, the book of Job. Paul in the New Testament is one of the great heroes of the Bible, speaks of times of despair, when I despaired of life itself. And Jesus speaks into this situation, and he speaks with compassion because he knows. There's one occasion, just a few days before the cross, where Jesus speaks of the inner turmoil of what's going on in his own heart. And he actually says this, my heart is troubled. The word in Greek means literally overwhelmed, totally troubled. It was used in secular Greek to describe a storm at sea. You're in a little boat, and suddenly you're in the midst of a storm. A storm that just overwhelms you. The sun disappears, the sky is black, the waves are about to put your little boat under the sea. That's the word which he uses. My soul is overwhelmed. You take him a few days later and he's the Garden of Gethsemane, and it's the horror of what's going to happen to him comes into to his sight. He sweats as it were great drops of blood. Jesus experiences the trauma of these kind of things. So when he speaks, he's worth listening to. He is honest. And I hope that as Christians we can be honest about these things. As we've said before, if you want to find out more, look at Jesus. Look at his honesty. Listen to what he says. But the second word is hope. Come to me, those who are weary and burdened, he takes it seriously, I will give you rest. Rest. What is hope? Hope is a much neglected word, I guess because it's a much misunderstood word. We kind of think of hope as, fingers crossed, maybe wishful thinking. When I hope for something, I'm pretty certain it's not going to happen, but I've tried every other avenue, so now I'll try this. In the Bible, it's almost exactly the opposite of that. Hope in the Bible is unconditional, absolute, 100% certainty. I know this. I'm certain of this. I know that this is going to happen. And Jesus gives hope. He says, look, I can give you rest in the midst of all these burdens. As far as the past is concerned, I can give you real, true forgiveness. Now let me say, as I said earlier, we need to be careful of phantom guilt. Sometimes in darkness we feel guilty for things that we shouldn't feel guilty about, things we haven't done. But sometimes it's real. I remember someone saying to me, my whole life is like living as I'm looking in the rearview mirror. You know, when you drive, your driving instructor says, you know, when you get to your test, make sure you keep looking in the mirror. Do it deliberately so that the test person sees that you're looking in the mirror. And you need to look in the mirror, but imagine that that's all you ever look in. You're driving your car down the motorway at 70 miles an hour, and all you're looking in is your rearview mirror. You're not looking at what's in front of you. You're going to be in trouble. And the person said, that's what my life feels like. I've done things in the past. I can't get over them. And I can't go forward because of those things. What does Jesus say? I can take away the guilt. I can wash it clean. I can give you a new beginning. I can give you a new start. Psychiatrists have said that if you can offer people a sense of knowing that they really are forgiven, really truly forgiven, then it's often the first step towards healing. Jesus promises, I can take your sins away, I can make you clean, I can give you rest. But it's not just the past, it's the present. He doesn't use the word, but in the background is that wonderful Hebrew word shalom, which is wellness. We can bring anything to him. We can bring our sins, our failures, our regrets, our wounds, our hurts, our fears, our anxieties, our inadequacies, our pressures, our perplexities. And what does he do? He gives us rest. He gives us shalom. We know that we're loved. We know that we're accepted. We know actually that there's a purpose in our lives. One of the great verses that has always helped me is that God works all things for good. Even the darkest things. I look back on my life and the darkest experiences have been the most precious experiences in helping me to help other people. Part of the preparation for my job has been just that. That rest is for the past, it's for the present, and it's for the future. I told the story of Max. Some people are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy, and they know that's their lot for life, and there's no easy answer. That's what I've got to learn to live with. And for other people, it's manic depression, or it's bipolar, or it's schizophrenia. And that's, I can find help, but that's what I've got to live with. But here's the great hope. It was the hope that Max had. One day there will be complete mental health, complete physical health, complete relational health. And you might say, well, that'd be great, but it's just too good to be true. And the answer again comes back quite simply to this man Jesus. This man Jesus who is God coming amongst us to put things right, to die on the cross so that God can forgive, so that we can be reconciled to God, so that we can discover the purpose of our lives, and that we can face even death itself with assurance and with hope and with certainty. Is it a crutch? Is Christianity a crutch in difficult times? Well, to me, I guess it's more than a crutch. It's been a kind of a total life support system. But that doesn't mean it's not true. That doesn't mean that, it's wishful thinking, fingers crossed. No. It's based on this man, Jesus. Come to me. Come with all your burdens, come with all your doubts, come with all your fears. Be honest, and I will give you rest. Come to him, find out more about him. That's what we're here for. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Paul and Lexi, for everything you've shared already tonight. That's about it for tonight, but let me remind you to take advantage of the email addresses that will come up on the screen later. You can take a photo of them and do write to us if you want to talk about these things more, or just continue the conversation. We do pray that tonight's been a help to you, whether you're a Christian or not. And as Paul has said just now, it's all about Jesus, and we must get to know him, find out more about him. And we would really encourage you to do that and to take advantage of the resources we've got for you. So do be in touch, and thank you all for coming along tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.